Damn, I'm fucking fired up. All right. I'm on hella caffeine right now. I've been wanting to get Sage on the podcast for probably like a year now. This is Sage Bender, good friend of mine. He's also the Squid Haus creative director, so we work with each other. He's also, at one point, one of the youngest black belt in jiu-jitsus in the country. He's a business owner. He's the biggest. Are you the biggest fighter on TikTok or one of the biggest fighters?
I was one of the first fighters to bring like jiu-jitsu to TikTok, really. Yeah. So I that was right during the COVID era, so I took advantage of that and grew a few million, and then I lost a couple accounts, but
you got banned and then you came back?
Yeah, I came back. I don't really care that much to push TikTok that much anymore, but it's still such an important part of marketing, and like there's a lot of value in knowing how to work it, so I try to stay relevant.
Yeah, dude, and you don't even know. That's the cool thing about social media and a personal brand is you don't even know the value yet. It's not like, okay, if I put in 5 hours of work, I get this much money out or I get this connection out. It's like, this is an investment that we don't even know what can come of it. It could happen, anything 5-10 years from now. Connections, business opportunities, promotional deals, status. Like,
I don't know. And I think that's what a lot of people fail to realize is also like, just because you can be famous in social media, there's a difference between being famous and providing value. And I think that's the biggest difference. Like when I started social media, I took advantage of the fact, how do I word this? I took advantage of the fact that my facial features made things a lot easier for me. And
well, you're saying that you're a good looking dude, like that helps for sure. Like if you were fucking beat, like no one would watch your stuff.
I'm not saying nobody would watch it, but it makes it easier to sell something, to provide something of value. But then like I got so many followers based off of like looks and style, and then I realized that there's absolutely no value in that audience. Like the people that want you solely for your looks don't actually provide value as a creator, and then that's where it really starts to make a difference, where you're like, I'm doing this for the wrong reasons. And I think I also hated social media because of that, because it's like your validation comes from, you know, a young audience that basically worships you at some point, but your whole life can be in shambles and people are still looking up to you. And I just feel like it's dishonest. I think a lot of people on social media do that. They present such a put together atmosphere, and you meet them in person and you're just like, dude, you're kind of a bum.
Wait, let's talk about that a little bit. So you said things were, because I know you and I have discussed this in the past, but you said things were going really well. So it seems on social media, you got the following, right? Like, but in reality, are things not going too well? Can you take it?
Yeah. So when I started social media, I moved to Florida when I was 18 to help open up a jiu-jitsu gym out there. And I never downloaded TikTok, but I was very curious about it. And so I downloaded TikTok and I decided to make a little day in the life of me going surfing. And I didn't actually know how to surf, but I just knew how to make an aesthetic look good, you know. And so I went out there, I made a little video, and I got, you know, a couple hundred likes. And that was really wild to me because I'd never used social media in an aspect that didn't come directly from people who knew me. And so I was like, this is interesting. And then I went to my gym later that day and I made a video where I did like a backflip. I was in like regular clothes and I backflipped, stopped the video, changed into a gi, hit the backflip from the same spot, land, and I'm in like a full uniform, right? Blows up. I get like 10K in like 30 minutes. And I was like, oh, this is different. And then from there, like I blew up and I started teaching self-defense tutorials and created a massive audience through that. And then, you know, so then I have a few million followers. And like I moved to Florida with like $300 in my pocket. Like I had no plan, no structure, no idea how I was going to make it work. And so even though like a year in, COVID hits, you know, I moved in September, COVID hits in like February, March. And so I took full advantage of that, grew so many followers. My engagement was insane. And like I had this whole big image and people thought I was the shit. And it wasn't till, you know, sometimes you can be fine coasting along, but it wasn't until I went through some things on my own that I realized like my life is kind of shit. Like I don't have anything going for me. I knew how to fight, but that was kind of it. And so from that perspective, you know, it started to really get to me that people looked up to me so much. And you know, there's always levels to social media. You know, there's people that are famous and then there's people that are just a different tier of famous. And so, you know, even in that beginning tier, it just didn't feel right. And I remember going to a massive social media convention in Orlando. It was the first time I'd ever really like seen influencers in real life. And I had like 100K at the time. Wasn't really a big influencer. And then somebody invited me as a photographer to be part of like a creator house that they were staying at an Airbnb out in Orlando, whatever. And I went out there and dude, I don't know if it's the infiltration from like the LA culture and stuff, but I was like, this is not where I want to be. And this is the last
You didn't like
thing.
being around the other creators?
I hated it.
Really? Why?
And it's just,
Was it them as people? Was it the lifestyle?
It's the difference between what you portray on social media and who you are in real life. And people, like I see this in Austin a lot. Everybody wants to be an influencer here. Everybody. And bro, they try really hard. And most of the time they have absolutely nothing of value to offer. But it's because they want that feeling of importance and they want to see that number and it makes them feel good. And I see people all the time chasing that number and chasing the number and they never look at themselves. And I was one of those people, like very, very much so. And like I put my worth behind my number. And if I met somebody else with that number, then that's how I judge your worth. And so with a shallow, input comes a shallow output. And so then you just like, I went to this convention and I was just so like shocked at how people act with following and like, especially some of these big LA, people that were out there. When I met them, I was just like, holy shit, you are a terrible person. and like, it's not so to like call people out on that, but it's just very common and it's easy to do and it's easy to forget who you are. And like I had millions of followers. I lost all those followers, started over, never had motivation to do it.
What was that
again.
like, by the way? Or was it just like, whatever, I'll grow it back?
No,
Because I know for some people, it was really devastating.
It was really frustrating. But honestly, like I never learned how to monetize social media. So I had millions of followers and I was making like $400 a month. Like,
yeah, I remember you told me
I
that.
had no idea how to monetize. And like I would get with a couple management companies and they all screw you over. They say they'll give you something, they never do. And so I was teaching self-defense tutorials and I kept getting banned because they were like, yo, this is promoting violence. And so I would appeal it, I'd get my account back, then I get banned again. And then, after so many times, they won't let you do it. And I actually, the video that set me off was I came to Austin. It's one of the first times I ever came here and I wanted to go dove hunting. And I took a video of me shooting a shotgun and that was the last straw and I got banned for that. I never could get that back. And
You're a bad influence.
Yeah, I fought with everything
Clearly.
to get that back, but they wouldn't let my appeal. So I was like crushed because like damn, I was so cool because of that. And then I'm like, I don't got anything. And then when I walked away from that, I was like, who really are you at this point? And I was in a very toxic relationship at the time. And when I got out of that, it was a big reality check where I was at a very, very low point in my life. And so, I didn't really have anywhere to go. I had just moved out of my house. I didn't have money to get another one. And so that's where, I stopped doing social media and I just kind of went ghost for almost a year. And during that year, a lot happened and changed. And so, sometimes it takes the lowest points to really realize how little you've actually prepared for life. It's great to feel like you got your shit together when your shit is together. But the second somebody reality checks you or calls you out for some shit that maybe you didn't think you were responsible for, then it really sets in and it's almost like an embarrassment, and I was embarrassed to where I was. And I said, the only thing I want to do is just honestly just get away from all this. So I stepped away from social media and, I was living at my friend's apartment for a little bit while I was trying to find mine. And I didn't have the money for it and I wasn't doing social media and, the gym that I was working for wasn't paying me. And so I was barely making it by, and it wasn't a great time, but it teaches you a lot and that's a good thing. And I was sleeping on my friend's couch for probably like 7-8 months. And it was such a humbling experience, because I had loving parents back in Tennessee that love me and support me. But, I moved to Florida because I was determined that I could do something. And so no matter what, no matter how miserable I wasn't going to give up on that, And so, I'm in Florida living like kind of a subpar life. I'm not making any money. I barely have food, like money to eat. I was eating rice every day. It was just a miserable time. And I finally get a job where I was making like, I don't know, like $700 a month. It was such a low point.
What was it?
I think it was to do with something with like photography. I was doing kind of like
So it
products.
was like some sort of like freelance.
Yeah, it was like a freelancing, and that was the one thing I kind of taught myself, photography. So I could get away with doing some stuff, and so I made like $700 a month, and I was like, all right, I need to get out of here. And I knew someone, a mentor of mine, that had a house that he said, hey, if you need somewhere to live, I'll rent this to you for $500 a month. And so in my head, I'm budgeting. I'm like, can I live off of $200 a month? And I said, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to take a chance and I'm going to do this, because there's something about if you're trying to fix your life and you're trying so hard, and at the end of the day, you have to go home and sleep on someone else's couch, it kills you. It is so demoralizing. And like, you know, you wake up and they're getting up, doing their own thing in their place, and you're just kind of sitting in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And it's a crazy feeling. And I was like, I think I have to get out of here in order to like just even remotely want to start changing my life, because I cannot do this. Like it's like I'm losing my mind. And you know, it was funny. I met my girlfriend at the time, and it's very funny when you fall in love with a girl when you have nothing to offer. And so, you know, like I survived, and like I would go over to her house just so I could have a bed to sleep on, you know, because I was like, I don't on the couch, and I would be like, can I come over, just so I could have a bed to sleep on? And like she owned a cafe at the time, and I would go out there just so I wouldn't have to pay for lunch, you know, and like I was broke, and you know, I would have $10 in my bank account, use $8 to buy her a coffee, and you know, like I was really determined to make this work with a girl, which to this day I don't know why. You know, like, why did I want that so badly in such a shit part of my life? But like, regardless of where I was like, the only thing I can be is honest, because I got nothing to offer. And so, you know, if she will stick through with this, I'm very confident that I'm making the right choice in a woman. And so, you know, that was also part of it. I was like, maybe I could finally have a place to show, you know, a little spot that I could call my own. And so, you know, I rent this room, and you know, I get out there, and I had my iPad, and I signed up for a digital marketing course. It was like a 9-week specialty course. It was like 12 weeks or something.
How much does that cost?
$450.
Which I'm sure was like quite a bit of what you had, right? You're like, yeah, fuck.
And so I did this marketing course. It takes 12 weeks. I finished the course in like 9 weeks. And I'm not going to lie, in terms of digital marketing, I guess like I was one of the first people to do that course. And so it wasn't as well developed as it should have been. And I ended up meeting with the founders of that course and like changing out the curriculum after that to help them with it, because I had experience from social media, and then I'm learning the physical output of it. And so I graduate that course, like I'm talking like 2 days in, and I get a DM from a kid out in San Diego.
Oh, to here?
Yeah.
Let's go. I'm seeing him in like a week, actually.
He said, yeah, he was telling me about that. And he's like, hey, I'm coming to you more as like a fan. I hadn't been doing social media at all. And he's like, but you know, I really love what you've done with fighting. I work with a couple fighters. I might be able to connect you to a couple brands. And so I, you know, the first person that I actually got connected with was you. And he, and I remember at the time, Squid Haus was so fresh that, you know, we had like 8 pairs of mesh shorts and a couple hats.
Well, let me interrupt you real quick. So a couple points to focus on here. Number one, this is like when our company just started. I was still in college. It was like a garage band clothing brand. Not even. Like, we were packing orders out of my apartment. Then we got to my cousin's garage. And so it was literally just my cousin and I. That's it. Those are the only people on the team. I think we had actually just hired this cool kid, Grant, who's still with us today. He's like our athlete manager. But it was very much like startup business. And I had just hired this guy to do photography for us, who literally just like took my money, didn't bring me the deliverables. Then he hits me up. He's like, yo, you know, I'm kind of struggling right now. Like, any chance you could give me, you know, like fuck, what do you call it? He's like, any chance you could give me a, what do you call it when you pay someone first? Why?
Like a spot?
Yeah. He's like, could you spot me like a $1,500? I can't pay my rent. And I'm thinking like, you know, yeah, I got you, bro. I'm a good guy. You know, you'll pay it back, right? Dude just like disappears, comes back a month later. Yo, dude, I'm really struggling again. Can you pay my rent again? I paid his rent again, bro. And then he fucking just never brought me the shit. But then I got connected with Sage. And at first, you know, Sage just started doing photography for us. And then eventually it turned into, not only is like, at first he was the model, then he became the one doing the photography. Then he started doing a little more. Then he was designing some products, and now he's our head creative director. So it just goes to show like how, you know.
Yeah, no, the come up of the Squid transformation is always funny to me because like, I don't know, I like to believe that what Lucas preaches in terms of like how Squid Haus represents the transformation of you as a person to who you really want to be. I felt like Squid Haus saw the most important parts of my life in that, and that was really valuable to me, you know. And like, I was in such a terrible spot when I met Lucas, and
I didn't know that, by the way.
Yeah, I had nothing to show for. You know, I was learning to survive off $200 a month. My best friend had just died in a really brutal car accident like 2 months prior to that. And it just was not a good time, you know, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to do this call, whatever. And originally we were talking about doing something kind of like affiliate as an athlete. And I had just decided, I was like, listen, if I'm going to get back into social media, because I'm probably going to need to, I don't want to do affiliate marketing. I just don't like affiliate marketing. It's not my thing. And so I was like, hey, listen, like, but I do know how to use a camera. Let me do some photos. And I think like we agreed on like one photo shoot for like $500. It was like, but to me, I was like, dude, that's 700 plus 500. We're golden for the month. And I was like so excited to just have an opportunity to like do something. And, you know, I did the photos, and then, you know, I think we agreed on a couple more, and I started working with them. And Lucas goes, yo, you graduated from marketing school. You know how to run ads, right? And I had never run an ad in my life. Okay. I did this marketing course, but dude, they did such a shit job on covering meta that like I was still like completely confused. And I sat down on a computer for like 3.5 weeks and researched every fucking thing I could find out about meta and advertising.
So you said, you had no idea what you were doing?
Yeah. And I agreed to do it. And I started, you know, putting together some ads, and like, I didn't suck at it, but I wasn't great at it. And once we started, I had been running with them for like 3 months at that point. And he's like, do you want to run ads, or would you rather, you know, work on like photography or something? And I was like, you know what, let me really work on photography, because our content was really lacking at the time. Just, we didn't have consistency in terms of people that were associated with the brand because it was so small. And, you know, I look at it a year later, and I think my year mark was in August. We're in September now. So
I feel like you've been here more than a year now. I thought it was like early in the summer. I could be wrong though.
Or I think it was July. It was a couple months ago. That was my 1 year. Yeah. And like, since then though, it's been like, it's crazy to see the insides of a company that people only see on social media. Like, you don't really talk about Squid Haus yourself because one, you just sound douchey when you do, you know, like, yeah, for sure. Like you don't really talk about the come up, and like people don't see Lucas in his like grind era, but this kid is in there every single day, and just like, he's so committed to the craft. And like, it was incredible to see the growth that we've gone through. And like, dude, we've been screwed a lot and taken advantage of a lot of people. And like, we've had so many downfalls, like working with a manufacturer for like a year straight, that just, you know, we had so much trouble just being able to produce a product. Like, we went through the entire winter barely even able to drop anything other than like a pair of sweatpants.
To be fair, I think that's also partly on us for just not really know what we were doing at the beginning. Because then, you know, at first you're trying to, you know, for everyone listening, and then there's a point I want to go back to, but for everyone listening, like, we were trying to create these really custom, unique products with this new manufacturer. And we just simply didn't have the budget, the expertise, and the time, most importantly, to like work on some really custom products. Like, we were trying to do like next generation stuff. And that just isn't like, that's not the most optimal use of time for a startup brand. Like, kind of the name of the game. And this is what I learned from the founder of Built Basics, he's sold like 6 or 7 companies. I got on a call with him, and we're friends now, and he was like, yeah, dude, I mean, at your stage, if you have customers that want to buy, the name of the game is take somebody else's product, make it slightly better, make it yours, and then sell that, right? He's like, you don't need to create like the next, super technical Lululemon dupe, right? Because like you just don't have the money for research and development like that. What you need right now is to just spam products. And so, I will say like that's part on us. But yeah, like you run into a lot of people in business that, say one thing when they're in reality like not where they're supposed to be. But the point I want to focus on here is, Sage kind of just said like, I took on this job not knowing at all what to do, which I didn't even realize until right now, honestly. But I think the lesson there is, I completely agree with that. I think in general in life, if you have an opportunity to take an opportunity that you are not prepared for, say yes, say I can do it, and then figure it out. Like the other day, someone hit me up about something. Yo, do you know if you'd be able to handle this? Big business move for our company. I can't say what it is yet, or else it might screw me. But I said, yeah, no problem. Like we could do that.
No idea if you can do it.
And I've never done it before. And I'll figure it out for sure. But I think, that's what business is. You're always running into new problems that you don't know how to solve. And that's the whole point, is you have to figure out the solution.
That's the beauty of it. And like none of us really know exactly what we're doing, but the amount that we've learned in 1 year, I'd like to believe that we've progressed faster than any company I've seen, being surrounded by. And there's a lot of up and coming brands, and the fitness market is very, very, popular. And so it's hard to stand out. And, the problem was that we had these super unique shorts that we became popular for. And then we tried to basically emulate that and everything. And it's like, that's not always the case, and like less is more a lot in business. And I think we're extravagant in it. But the one thing that I love about Lucas, and I feel the same way, is that like if we ever are hesitant to make a decision, there's almost a guarantee that we'll make the decision, because rather than play the odds, I at least feel way better if I'm put in an uncomfortable situation, because I got to figure it out. If I don't feel pressed to make a decision, I'm not going to do it. And we've started embodying that mindset a lot more, taking some risks as a company. And, like these next fall, winter season is going to be crazy. Come spring, we have, basically a whole new company in terms of what we've done. And like, when we started, it was like you guys were growing way faster than we could handle. We barely had a website put together. And, like now where we are, it's just, I don't know, it's a crazy story to see how far Squid Haus has come, and then, how far it can go. But I love my job. I think I have a great fucking job.
Dude, so I'm glad to hear that. So yeah, for everyone listening, the way I operate as a business owner is I fucking hate telling people what to do. And I don't want to tell people what to do. Like I get, DM'd from kids all day, every day, like probably 30 or 40 DMs a day. Hey man, I want to work for free. I'm like, my name is John. I go to this college. Like I'm studying economics. I'm a junior. Like I'd be thrilled for the opportunity. And I appreciate it. I respect it. But I would rather have someone knows what they're doing and pay them to do so. And so, obviously Sage is a lot more talented than me when it comes to design, just having an idea in mind for aesthetic. Also when it comes to, creating cool products. I don't know what I'm doing on that front. So I leave it up to him. And, I think that's probably the best way to lead, in my opinion. I could be wrong on that. But like your whole goal as a business owner is not to be the best at everything. It's to find the people who are the best at everything. And even though Sage just got started kind of recently, like he's already doing a great job. So that gets me excited about like, what the potential is long term.
Yeah, it's hard too as a leader. Like you can be good at business, but that doesn't make you a good leader in any way or form. And like I went to military school for years when I was younger. And so, you become cadet officers and stuff like that, and you can go through the ranks. And my name was Cadet Lieutenant Bender, and that was what I was known by. And like you learn leadership, though. It's a very important part of these curriculums, and you would have to take tests in order to promote and rank up through certain things. And we would have things called encampments, where there's like hundreds of cadets that come in that, in order to get to an officer, you have to go to an encampment. It's like a week and a half long specialty kind of boot camp where you're staying on a military base, you're living in cots, and, you have to make your bed 18 inches from the front, 6 inches from the, smiley face of the pillow facing towards the door. And you'd have all these standards, and you would first go through it, and then you would come back years later as a staff sergeant or, a flight commander, and you would start leading cadets. So when you're like 15, 16, you're leading flights of anywhere from 20 to 40 kids, learning how to be a leader. And, there's a lot of opportunity in that. And I would always find it really like I don't know. I thought it was cool. You know, it was like a little military school, but I realized the value and the importance of becoming a leader because there are so few good ones in the world. And like, it says a lot, you know, that someone Lucas's age can also manage a team of guys that are pretty much, we're all the same age, aren't we?
Yeah.
You know,
Some older.
Troy's a little younger,
older.
but like, that's hard because like I run a gym and I'm very young to own a jiu-jitsu gym. And the large majority of my students are between 18 to 25 and they all see me as a great friend. But there are times when I have to be a coach and I have to be a leader, and the difficulty is finding how to balance that. I find that Lucas does a great job in what he does as a leader. But it's a rarity. People don't realize how hard it is to be a leader. Everybody wants to get the benefits of being a leader and being in charge and saying you're a CEO, but it's not really glorious at all.
It's not. And I want to shift conversations here, but before, it's definitely not. I think, you know, like, not to bring this up again, but like, because I feel like I do a lot and people get upset about it. But so I was fraternity president in college, right? And those, like the lessons that I learned from that shit have helped in everything. But I think one thing that really stood out to me is that you never get a thank you. Like you never get a thank you. You never get congratulated, rewarded. Like as the leader, you have to be okay with like, you're the guy, if everything goes to hell, you're getting blamed. You're the one that needs to fix it and you're expected to fix it. And when you do, it's not like, oh, good job. It's like, it was the expectation. You know what I mean? And you're going to have to deal with that too once we grow a little more and you got multiple people under you designing products, doing everything, right? But I think you're obviously prepared for that. So, and that's just something that'll come as it happens as we grow. But I want to shift topics a little bit. Let's get into the Sage Bender lore because that's what I think everyone's here for. So, you know, as we said in the beginning, Sage is black belt. You were a black belt since 21 years old, which is insanely impressive. What goes into that? How do you become a black belt in jiu-jitsu? This is something, there's people that have trained jiu-jitsu for 20 years and still aren't black belts yet. And they're 40 years old. How have you done it so early? When did you get started? Like, where's day one come from?
Day one comes honestly from my ethnicity because my mom's Japanese. I'm half Japanese. And for those of you who have grown up in an Asian household, they will know what I'm talking about when it is a brutal reality of growing up. And so when I was, and so the only thing harder than a Japanese mother is a Japanese mother who's a very devout Christian. And so not in a way that disses Christianity, but when you have this cultural spiritual remix of, is the reason that you want me to grow because of your vision for me or because of what's actually good for me? And, you know, as a Japanese, the most important thing is college, you know, and school and education, doctor, engineer, those are your options. You get two. And, you know, and so when I was 6 years old, or like 7, I think, somewhere around there, my mom felt that I was destined to be a bad kid. And she set it in her mind that I had bad influences. I had like my church friends and that was it. And like up until I was 18, I drank maybe once in my life. I never touched a drug. I never went to parties, never hung out with kids that didn't go to my church because they were considered worldly. Kids that went to a public school or private school, I wasn't allowed to hang out with them. And, you know, I wasn't allowed to talk to females up until 18. My mom would check my phone to make sure there wasn't even a trace of a female in my phone, you know? And so I started jiu-jitsu, or actually, you know, I started Taekwondo. And
you did it or your parents put you in it?
Oh, my parents put me in it. You think I
like
want to do that?
Tiger Woods, Tiger Woods, his dad threw him in the earliest age possible.
I like Taekwondo. I thought it was cool, you know? I'm doing Taekwondo is a self-defense though, or not a self-defense, it's a sport. Yeah. It has nothing to do with actual, you know, fighting skills and ability to control people. And if anybody says otherwise, they don't know what they're talking about. And I was enjoying it, but I guess I was goofing off too much. And so to my mom's standard, she's like, this is honestly bullshit. We need to put you through something that's really going to discipline you. And so she trained police dogs, and she trained police dogs with this guy who said, yo, I know this guy, he has a jiu-jitsu program. It's a, cutthroat program. I think it'd be really good for him. And I started jiu-jitsu, and I absolutely hated it because
at 7, right?
yeah, like right around then, because dude, you get beat up, and like, it doesn't matter. Like the thing that people have a problem with jiu-jitsu, and you'll find this no matter how old you get, is if you tell a man that you're going to come in here, and oftentimes by a person much smaller than you, I'm going to put you in a position where you can't do anything.
Yeah.
I don't care. You do not have the skill, the capability, or the talent to do anything.
Yeah.
And I will control and just run through you. It's like demoralizing. And I hated it. And I would go home crying pretty much every single day from class, and
she would just force you to go.
She'd force me to go, and she'd sit there
That does
the whole hour and just watch me, train, whatever. And then the whole ride home, lecture me for like 40 minutes on what I could have done better. She's never trained a day in her life. And don't get me wrong, I love my mother, because if she didn't push me like that, I would never be who I am.
For sure.
But that doesn't mean that was any easier. And I had this one kid, and he was my like arch nemesis in the class. And one day I like hit a little move, and I passed his guard in a little game we were playing, and he started crying. And that was so fascinating to me, that a kid that was beating my ass, the second he gets beat by a kid much less skilled than him, that was how he was going to respond. And I find that, and a lot of times, even as you grow older, it's the same way. And something in me lit up at that prospect of like, I have the capability of being less skilled, but if I try harder, I can be really good at this.
I like beating people up.
Yeah. And I wasn't even doing it for like the art of the sport. It was that fascination with the concept of like breaking down people's ego. And so then I started training some more. I started taking some private lessons, and I started to love the sport. And my mom was like, honestly, I think you suck, and I'm going to give you 6 months. And if you can't improve, then I'm pulling you out of jiu-jitsu. And so
do you think that's actually how she felt, or that was like a challenge to see how good you could become?
I think both, but you don't realize that when you're that young either.
Yeah.
And so she took me to a new coach, and I started training under this coach, and I just blew up, and I did really well, and I started competing. And when I started competing, that's where I found that I had a lot of potential. And so my mom, like, shout out mom, because she would drive me to competitions pretty much every weekend, 3-4 hours away. And, she would have me compete in every division I could. So when I was like, once I became like 12, 13, I was competing in like adult divisions. I was beating, adults when I was like 14. And honestly, it was like easier for me to fight adults than it was kids, because kids were more hyper and active and fit. And adults, like, I don't know, I just felt like I could run through them.
And what was that like? What's it like when you beat someone who's like twice your age? Are they just like, give me some examples of some people who were just like, didn't take it properly, were like, good job, bro?
Well, it's always, you're going to underestimate a kid. And I remember when I was like really young, in some of the jiu-jitsu tournaments, they would make you co-ed, because at the time when you're like 9-10 years old, females are typically bigger than dudes. And so they would like, they would do co-ed comps, and so you would have to fight girls sometimes. And I remember I underestimated a girl one time in a competition, and she kind of beat my ass to the point where I had to like step it up. And like, that was one of the only girls I ever fought in a competition. I ended up like ankle locking her or something, and I was just like, hey, listen, this is part of the game here. We're in this, and I was like, damn. But I walked in that I just underestimated it. I'm 10 years old. I didn't think anything of it, and so then you find that a lot of times when you're like a kid and an adult sees you, they don't think anything of it. And honestly,
they're probably going easy on you.
Yeah. And then, you kick it up a notch, and then that's where it really makes a difference. And so I started gaining a reputation in Memphis growing up, and all these local competitions. And like, I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee. So these were in like Nashville, Franklin, Atlanta, like all these local spots. And I would start to, take home 5-6 gold medals from, kids divisions, nogi, gi, adult nogi, gi, absolutes. And so, I started racking up medals in that. And I went to NOGI Worlds when I was 16, and I won that. and then I won the absolute, which is like the open weight division as well. So that was double gold at the Worlds, which was pretty reputationally well sought after. And then when I was 18, you know, I was a purple belt at the time, moved to Florida, trained there for a few years. And I still train there, but I got my brown belt when I was like 20, and dealt with a lot of injuries because of jiu-jitsu. I blew my arm like completely sideways. It went up to here in a move, and like it ripped all the tendons and the muscles out, and I had this like lump on my arm, and I was supposed to get surgery on it. They were like, listen, you're gonna have reconstructive surgery on your arm. We got to take tendons out of your leg and put them in your arm to reconstruct it, and it's gonna be like 8 months to heal. And at the time I was on a fire kick with like competitions and everything, and I thought about it, and I was like, I got this great idea. I'm just not going to do anything. And so I just let it sit. And so to this day, I don't have a tendon connecting this arm and all this. And
what does that mean?
Like, I don't really know what it means. Long term, as what I was told by the doctor, I won't really be able to use this arm correctly.
Oh, nice.
But as of now, I'm fine, and I train every day. And those are the type of injuries that I would just blow through because I was young. And like,
would you just ignore the pain, or would it go away eventually, or what?
It took months to go away, but eventually it went away. And I don't really know how the dynamics of that work, but I continued training and I got really good. And then I went through a chapter basically where I lost my coach and I lost my gym and I didn't have anywhere to go. And so I wasn't really sure what to do. And I had my business partner now, he reached out to me because he was a black belt at the time.
A much older guy, right?
Yeah. And he reached out to me. He's like, listen, I really don't think it's that hard to start a gym, and I was like, absolutely not. I'm like 20 years old, I can't even legally drink right now. And
you haven't even really had much of a childhood.
No, I haven't. And, that was the thing too, is that like, that was 2 months after I started working for Squid Haus. So I didn't have my life together, renting a $500 room in a little house, and the years before that, like, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed moving to Florida, but it almost killed me because I had never drank in my life, never been alone in my life. And I moved out, from a very, very strict religious household, and I went off the rails to discover what life was. And I had a motto, like, I'll try anything once, like absolutely anything. And it would lead me through the craziest benders of my life and just absolutely crazy stuff that I can't legally talk about. And like, I went crazy.
That's what happens when you're cooped up
I wanted
for so
to discover
long,
it. And I made so many friends during that era. I made so many friends in Florida, and I don't talk to a single one of them anymore because
they're the wrong types of people, or what?
Yeah, but I got so swept up in the lifestyle and I didn't see anything wrong with it. And then you walk away, and I call this the small town syndrome. And I think a lot of people have this, and I have a couple friends that are stuck in it, but everyone knows the people from their hometown that when you see them out at a bar randomly, they come up to you and start talking about the glory days, and you ask them, so what are you doing? And it's still the exact same thing. And they still live in the same city. They still live in the same shitty apartment. They still have a paycheck to paycheck job. And then they start talking, oh, but dude, I can't wait. I got so many great ideas. I'm going to get out of here. I want to move to Tampa. I want to move to these big spots. I want to do this big stuff, and they're talking you up, and then you leave and you go back 6 months later and they're doing the same thing. And every single one of my friends that I made was stuck in that cycle to the point where
the longer you wait, the worse it gets, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it drove me crazy. And I was like, I can't be around you. I have to get away from everybody. And so I started working for Squid Haus. I agreed to open a gym with no idea how we were going to do it.
It looks pretty nice.
It looks nice, and I've made it work. But it was in a loft. It's in a loft, second story of a gym. So it's actually it's a really sick setup. But you have this massive gym underneath, like
and that's not
warehouse,
yours, right? That's somebody.
No, that's somebody else's gym. And there's weightlifting, giant grass turf, batting cages, CrossFit area. You know, you have like Olympic lifting team style area where like they do all those traditional stuff. And then you go up the stairs and then you have the jiu-jitsu gym. And so, you know, it's in business, I think a lot of times it's not about what you do, it's who you know. And so we had some incredible people that helped start the gym. And I said, you know what? I just want to disappear from the world for a little bit. I'm going to spend 6 months. I'm going to work my ass off and I'm going to make this work. And the only way is to succeed or I completely fail and I'm going home. And I knew that if I went home to my parents that I would probably never come back out of that. Like just if it was going to take, after everything I've been through, if I was going to fail to the point where I had to go home, I was never going to make it in life. And so I put my head down and I just grinded and nobody heard from me. And to this day, I have a buddy who owns like a pharmaceutical distribution company. It's worth millions. And I said, you know, what's the best advice you can give me? He said, you need to learn how to fuck off. And he said, you fuck off from everything in your life, drinking, drugs, you know, friends, even your family, and you just need to lock in. And I know you say this and people talk about this all the time, like, oh yeah, you know, I'll do it. No, like you need to get away from everything and you need to disappear and you need to have a worth of life as 0. And the only way you can do is succeed or fail.
That's kind of the idea of like getting really good at saying no, you know, saying no to even your friends, your family. Oh, can I get some time on the phone? No. Do you want to hang out? Do you want to go for a drink? No. Right. And people are going to call you. That's the thing is people are going to call you selfish. They're going to call you a dick. They're going to say, oh, he thinks he's too good for us. It's not about that. It's just about like you need to do whatever you have to do to put yourself in a place where you're happy. Because, you know, if you going and saying no to people so that you can find a place in your life where you're happy is selfish, then that's selfish. Yeah. But I think like most people are not happy. So
there's a book called Being Selfish in Your 20's. Great book. And like it really is true. You have to be selfish and that's the only way to do it. And like the people that compensate to like make excuses to why they can't do it, I'm just like, well, you're just not going to see eye to eye and that's fine. But like, I step away from people like that because at this point, my circle is everything. And like, you don't realize that. I realized that coming out to Austin, like I knew how important it is to roll with a good circle. But in Daytona, you know, I have my girlfriend and I have me and I have one of my best friends that I train with. And that's my circle right there. It's 3 people. And so at first I was like, okay, this is my reality. And then Lucas has me come out to Austin, you know, see some of the friends. There's a lot of good people out here. You know, you got the Raw Dog Boys, you got a lot of go-getters out here. And I was so amazed by just the culture behind wanting to be successful in Austin. I think it's a very, very healthy thing.
You haven't seen anything yet, by the way.
I haven't. I've only been here a few times, and every time I come out here, I love it more.
Well, I'm not even just saying in terms of Austin, but in terms of like...
Yeah, and
when you start to hang out with people that are worth like $100-200 million, and you're just like, wow, I'm a fucking loser.
And I come out here and I'm like, damn, what a good circle. You know, what a good energy it is to just be here and everybody wants to be successful. And for the first time, I'm surrounded by people my age, but every single one of them has their own thing going on. And I'm like, damn, this is so sick. And you know, and it really pushed me. I came back from that trip and started social media again after that because I was like, now I have value and I have worth. And I was surrounded by people who are using social media for a benefit to really provide value. Like they were providing value into their insight, how they do things, and they want to help people. And I have such a good opportunity, especially in jiu-jitsu, to teach self-defense. I became very popular for self-defense. And, you know, I had a curriculum that I would teach self-defense to women, and I would travel around the United States and teach to female dominant groups and just teach them self-defense, teach them how to protect themselves. And I made a massive difference in a lot of people's lives without realizing. And, you know, at the end of the day, you're right. Like as a leader or someone that's like an instructor, you never get thanks for it, but it's the best feeling in the world to be able to provide. You don't need the thanks. Yeah, it's not why you do it.
Yeah.
And with that being said, you know, I came out of that. And from then on, my life has just blossomed. And every time I was hesitant about being uncomfortable, it's always the best decision I've made. Yeah. You know, you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And it's so important. And from there, you know, I've gone through a lot. I've been through a lot. I've transitioned through a lot of people, but I'll never say I'm proud of myself because I feel like the second you say you're proud of yourself, you get comfortable. But I'm very happy with the direction that I've gone, because I think if I didn't do this, I would not be the same person.
Yeah, I think as long as you're better than you were yesterday in some way, then that's good. But I agree, you do have to have that never-ending drive, that never-ending hunger in order to be the kind of person that wants to achieve great things and keep going, whether it is in business or athletics, or sports, fighting, whatever, or even just becoming the best person possible in any respect. But, you know, so in order to have done what you've had to do, right? Take all these challenges, get really uncomfortable. I think still what I'd love to know is like, what does that actually take? Like, you know, for you to accomplish like a black belt at, 21, right? How many hours do you think you put into that? Is the 10,000 hour rule pretty accurate? Is it much more than that? Is it less? Like, were you training 4 hours a day every single day for 12 years, or what does that look like?
Yeah.
Give me like a daily schedule. Because I think it's important for people to understand. A lot of people think they want these cool things. I want even you see like fucking all these like mountaineering videos are popping on TikTok right now, climbing K2 and all this shit. Bro, that's not only 800 people that have climbed K2 ever. I know that's kind of a random point to bring up, but like, you really think that you're going to go do something that everybody else wants to do? Like, what does it actually take to be the guy that gets a black belt, or to be the guy that has the crazy successful business?
In a discipline that actually, like, there's a lot of martial arts out there that are kind of bullshit, like Krav Maga and Taekwondo and karate.
I was gonna say, is that one legit?
And like, I hate that too, because a lot of times, especially in women, like they teach women to like, oh, poke someone in the eyes.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you take someone like Pactor's size and you poke him in the eye because he's trying to attack you and you miss, you are going to get your ass beat. And like, people don't realize that. And like, I was like, this sport is so different because jiu-jitsu is crazy. Okay, it looks a little homosexual, and at the end of the day, it is.
Because you're rolling around with dudes.
It is.
Well, so it's wrestling.
Like they always say, like,
I did wrestling in high school. I did jiu-jitsu for a little bit too.
Yeah, there's a quote like, starting jiu-jitsu is being promised the sweaty man orgy, and 10 years later, all you get is a black belt. And it, like, I get it, but at the same time, there are such a small percentage of people in the world that can do what I do, and it's not to say that other people haven't. There are so many athletes that are way better than me in jiu-jitsu, but for people outside of a jiu-jitsu realm that don't understand what that's like, you can't do it to the highest level unless you start at a young age. There are very, very few people. There's maybe a couple phenoms that have started at like 16, some at like 20 that do really well, but from a young age, there's very few people in jiu-jitsu that have done it. And the people that have all are some of the greatest athletes you have ever seen in the history of jiu-jitsu. Like, they are just dogs. And so when you look at a training schedule for jiu-jitsu, especially on a competitive level, and I was never part of like a huge competitive gym, but I competed a lot. And for the gyms that do, you get no time. And so like my schedule from a day-to-day basis right now is I wake up, I rush through to get anything I didn't finish from the last night done. I go to the gym at like 10. I have to come home. I have to cook everything for the day. And then I jump on the computer, run any calls I have. I do that till like 3. And then, sometimes I train in the morning as well. So I'll have to balance a morning class as well. And then once 4 o'clock, 4:30 hits, put everything away. You get to the gym. I teach for 4.5, 5 hours.
Damn.
And then on the weekends, you're training.
Is that multiple classes or what?
Yeah, multiple classes. And then, you're doing hard cardio every day. You're doing full-blown training sessions. And then you're training Monday through Saturday. Very rarely do I train on Sunday. I try to keep that one day to myself. But Saturdays are even worse. You have striking. And then I'm also training striking, which is a whole new art, and so that's an incorporation as well. So, but like, you think about hours from like 7, 8 years old, and you're training on average anywhere from 3 to 6 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week. And, I wasn't always the most consistent, but that's, there was never a period where I took off more than a week from jiu-jitsu in my life other than being injured.
Yeah.
And so when you really think about that, we're going on like 16 years, and you times that by 52
crazy
by the weeks. And then you times that by, you take maybe a week off a year, 2 weeks off a year. And then, it's 10,000 hours becomes a small number. And
what is that? Let's do the math right here. So like, okay, so you got 16 years. I was going to do it in my head, but yeah.
let's say,
Let's try and make a calculation.
let's say
I'm very curious.
3.5 hours a day, right? And you're doing that 5 days a week, okay? And that's 17 hours a week that you're putting in. You times it by, say, 50, because you take like 2 weeks off a year through little vacations. That's 875 hours, you know, a year basically. And that's at the bare minimum. So if you start putting in the gym and then you start putting in striking, you're adding another 5 hours a day, which would basically double that number. And then you're timing that by 16 and you basically don't have a life anymore. Wow. And so, like, I was really young to be a black belt and I was really young to be an instructor. And it still blows my mind that I'm like 23 years old and I'm a black belt and I have a full-blown academy. I don't know a single person in the United States that has an academy at 23 years old,
and a huge social media following, a lot of things. Like,
yeah, and I'm very lucky to do what I do, and I've done well in jiu-jitsu. I was one of the first people to bring jiu-jitsu to TikTok, and so I'm very well known for that. You know, they're like, you're the Karate Kid, you know, and I'm like, yeah, you know, that's me. I've come to love it, and I come to love the value of it, but in terms of what it takes, man, it takes everything. Like, if you actually want to be good, it takes absolutely everything in you, and you have to decide whether that's what you want. Like, my coach was a very jiu-jitsu or die style guy, and you know, if your mother died, guess what the solution is? To train.
Yeah.
You know, if you got fired from your job, train. If you're having a hard time, you feel like you want to kill yourself, train. And that was his mindset. It was just, you do jiu-jitsu or you die, and there's no in between. And like, I don't agree with that. To this day, I find there's an extreme value in listening to your students and what they need. And, you know, I have a very young audience in my gym and in my TikTok, and I feel it's very important that you prioritize that sometimes. There are days when you can't make it. There are days when you need to take time away. And I think it's very important that you do that. And so I spent a couple of years taking off of I'm got to compete. I got to be the best in the world, because one, you have time, you know, and take time to live your life and have a blast. You know, you're busy all the time, but you still find time to do things that you love. And, you know, you still learn how to find good times and enjoy that. So I thought it was important that I prioritize my life a little bit. And, you know, I traveled a lot. I had a great time with my girlfriend. We, you know, traveled to a bunch of different countries and just made things work. And that's, I think there's a huge value in understanding that, like, to be the best in the world, especially in a sport like jiu-jitsu, you know, it takes a lot. And honestly, right now, I don't have what it takes. And I'm very honest with that. And I'm very upfront about it. I've done well in the sport.
You mean to like to keep competing at a
yeah, if I wanted to compete at the black belt levels, I couldn't do it right now. I'm not in that shape, and I don't.
You also got injuries and a lot of things.
Yeah, I got a lot of things going on that prevent me from doing that, and that's okay sometimes. And you got to be okay with that. And I think a lot of times the way my mother pushed me caused me to feel like if I'm not the best in the world, I'm not successful. And that's not always the case. You know, there's levels to it all. The best that you could have might be something that no one will ever achieve.
Well, you could still be the best at something else too.
Yeah, and like, that's just as important to me, because in jiu-jitsu, it's a newer sport. And this is one thing that I always try to preach to people. But just because you're good at fighting, a lot of people will gain followers because of that. You know, they got 50,000 followers because they won the hardest competition in the world. And if you offered them a brand deal, they would have zero idea what to do with it. And so they get taken advantage of. One, the jiu-jitsu community is extremely underpaid. And then two, if they get injured, their life is over.
Yeah.
And so, like, I was like, when I had all this social media following and I was banking everything on it, when I lost it, I was like, how fragile is that? Like, at the end of the day, tomorrow I could lose my social media, and what do I have to show? You know, because that was my flex. My Instagram profile is my LinkedIn, you know, like that's my life. So if I lose that, what do I really have to show? And so when I disappeared, I said, okay, I need to take social media completely out of my life, because I have to build something that's going to provide value. So I start working, I get a good job, I do all these things, I develop, I have a gym. And so now if I lost social media tomorrow, I would honestly be relieved, because at least I get more time. You know?
I think there's a couple lessons there. Number one, confidence should come from multiple things, right? I think if your confidence comes all from one thing, whether it's how many followers you have, a lot of guys' confidence comes from their girlfriend, having a really hot girlfriend. If you lose anything like that, and all your confidence is reliant upon it, depends on it, you lose your identity. And that's devastating.
A lot.
All the time, bro. Yeah. All the time. You know, that's why it's so important to gain your confidence from action and doing. You know, even if fucking my business failed, bro, I'm a lunatic. I'm still gonna be like, bro, I'll create something else that's gonna be awesome, right? Like I don't give a, like it would suck. It would suck, and that's not gonna happen. But that's not where my confidence comes from, Not to talk about me, but the two other lessons I think that are really important there. Number one, the earlier you can start on something, the better. Like you clearly just said, you're living proof of it. You started really early. Like you're gonna develop in a way that other people just can't catch up to, because when you're a kid, it's just like learning how to use technology for the first time. You understand more, right? You figure out new and creative ways to do things. So the earlier you can get started on anything, the better, whether it's a sport, starting a business. Like the entrepreneurs that I have on here and the creators that we have on that are the guys that are worth tens of millions of dollars that are our age, there's always one thing in common. They always started hella early. Like CEO of a $700 million company started his first business at 11.
There's the phenoms that do otherwise, but for the most part, like that mindset was inhibited very young.
Oh yeah, way early. And then the last point here that I want to touch on is, bro, like it's very simple. If you want something that everybody else wants, you're going to have to do something that nobody else can do.
People aren't willing to do that.
They're not, bro.
They'll talk about how they're willing to do it.
They'll talk about it and they want it, but they don't want to do the stuff to get there. It's very simple. It's like, if you want to be a black belt, you got to put in 15,000 fucking hours. If you want to be rich, you got to put in 50,000 hours. Like this kid DM'd me the other day. Hey, Squid, how do I get rich? I was like, bro,
Cash
all I do is
10,000.
work. Bro, I'm not a genius, but like, think about this for a second. Like, all I have done, me personally, since since I was a kid, is work and try and start businesses. Yeah. But even since graduating college, all I have done is work. I don't go out. I don't go party. I don't drink. I don't even fucking go on dates right now. Like, all I do is work all day long, every day. I'm still not rich yet. It'll happen.
And
pretty
like,
soon, hopefully.
I don't know, man. People also, like, a big thing that I think has to do with being successful is people feel sorry for themselves for everything. And like, I used to love to drink. Don't get me wrong. I don't drink anymore. I'll have maybe one drink. If I go out for a birthday party, I'll do a shot with the birthday boy because it's a courtesy. But I drink maybe once every few months. I used to smoke.
What about that espresso martini last night?
I know, right? That's my one time.
You're in town.
Ethan said you have to break sobriety from me. I said, okay, I have one drink with you. But and then I had to quit smoking too. Smoking was a terrible thing. Like, people don't talk about this enough. Anything in moderation is okay, but kids our age cannot handle moderation. And I was smoking every day for like 2 years. I had a best friend that we discovered life together, and we went off the rails together, and he got me into smoking. I would smoke every day. I couldn't go to sleep.
Too? This is
oh yeah, dude. I would
so it's like wake up, train.
I would teach every class baked, and I'd smoke from, I'd smoke one in the morning and the afternoon. And like, don't get me wrong, I'm a great athlete, but dude, it started affecting everything I do. And there would be times when like Lucas lets me do what I want, but that wasn't always a good thing, because I would go 4 days without doing anything because I was so high. And it started to really affect me because I'm running a business, I'm running a social media, I'm working up in a company, and the more I do, the more responsibility I'm given, the more I'm pushed to be better. And I couldn't handle it. And then, I started lifting. I started lifting like 6 months ago, and now I lift like 5 days a week. I'm very consistent, and I'd never really lifted before. That takes out a ton of time. Yeah. Oh my God, going to the gym and then teaching
and recovery and everything.
And I couldn't do it. And I was losing my mind. And the thing about smoking is you become so okay with making excuses. And I had to quit, and I couldn't eat without smoking. So like my diet's all messed up. I couldn't gain weight. I couldn't eat the right things, because then, you get late at night, you're hitting the gas station because you're hungry. And like, I had to really square myself away. And so now, like, if I'm on vacation or something, sure. But like, I have to be so disciplined on myself and people feel sorry for themselves. Like, I find it really comical to my students that like they will complain about these injuries and act like their whole world is uplifted. I can't train. I just, I really hurt my ankle in an ankle lock. And I'm like, get over it. I need you to understand that like you're feeling sorry for yourself, or
just don't say it. Like, if you really are,
and
you
people
can't train, that's fine.
People
just don't
bring
talk
that
about
energy into the gym, and it pisses me off. I'm having such a bad day. You got a little rain cloud over you. I'm like, just keep it off the mat. And I yell at my students all the time. Keep it to yourself. You're pissing me off because I'm already struggling.
Yeah.
And I have to come in here and I have to teach you every day. I had the worst day of my life. You don't even you don't even barely have a job and you're complaining about how hard your life is because you're 18, you're 19. And like, it's so important to learn to just shut up, honestly. And like, there's a quote that says, no one cares, work harder.
For sure.
But you know, people want recognition for a minimal amount of work nowadays, and people want it for free. They how do I get rich? What can you do to make me rich without having to do anything? And I'm like, honestly, you need to learn how to lead yourself. You know,
I think
you got to sacrifice.
I think people just got to figure out that they just got to realize it's going to take a lot of time, man, and you got to be okay with that. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's supposed, if you just got rich tomorrow, I know you think it would be awesome, but you'd fucking kill yourself. It like you earn it, and that's what makes it fun, and that's what makes it awesome. And this is a person that I'll introduce you to very soon. But yeah, I had like Noah Neiman on the pod the other day, and Rumble founder. And, you know, same type of story. He said he was in like the deepest pit ever, almost died, you know, went through hell. And he was like a loser and a low life. And he just became a trainer at a gym. And he said the only thing that I had was my energy. And this dude started, I got to highlight this guy. This dude literally comes into a Barry's gym. No one used to do fucking Barry's, right? And he came in there and he was a trainer, and maybe a person or two would show up to his class. Most of the time, no one showed up to his class. This dude had so much energy. He had such tenacity. He made people feel so special, and he was so energetic and lively during his workout sessions that within a couple of months, there was like multiple week-long wait lists just to do a class with him. Yeah. And then he gets recognized by all these news articles, and people start making a TV show about him, and then he starts Rumble, which is, you know, it's literally
funny. I have a couple friends that work for Rumble before I even knew that you knew Noah, and like they love it. Like there's something about people that work with Rumble. They love that company. They love working for it, and they always got like you said, like an energy. And it's something about like, imagine that your influence as a leader and as a person could create not only an amazing company and a chain worth millions of dollars, but even in random cities that you've probably never even visited, your employees emulate that same energy. You know, because it's just like your vibe attracts your tribe, you know?
Dude, it's literally all because of him. Like, I've actually never met anyone. Like, I didn't even have to ask him a question during the interview. He just talked the whole time. But it was fucking awesome because I was just learning and soaking in information. And it was really inspiring, honestly, for me as a leader. And that's why I'm excited to introduce you to him. But it's just like when you meet people like that who've really done it, who've made millions and millions of dollars, who've gone and done badass, dope shit, have worked their ass off and built something really impressive, like it's infectious. And, you know, that's the other thing, though, is in order to get the opportunity to meet people like that, you at least have to be trying yourself. Yeah. Right? Why is anyone going to want to why is anyone going to want to hand you an opportunity or offer you a helping hand if you're not even trying to help yourself? Like, that's step number one, is you got to try and help yourself. But yeah, I feel like we're kind of running towards the end here, but dude, fucking pleasure to have you on. Unless there's anything else you want to bring up, I feel like we covered almost everything.
No, not really. You know, there's just it's a lot to it, and I think the coolest thing about what Lucas does is that you see people in success, but you don't really know what it takes, and like you never know who you're going to inspire. And you know, I've changed a lot of people's lives, and a lot of people have changed my life, and you know, I think take value in whatever you can get in life. But you know, for relationships like this, I think it's invaluable to just be able to spread knowledge and worth to people out there. So you know, I hope you guys enjoy it, because you know, you never know who you're gonna help one day with a story and who's got a similar story. So be kind to everyone. You know.
Hell yeah! Thank you guys for watching, bro. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
Pleasure to have you. Oh. If you guys, obviously, I'm gonna link all of Sage's stuff if you don't follow him already. Even though he's got like 10x the following of me right now, but I'm gonna link all of his stuff below. Go follow him. Go check out his page.
Keep an eye out for our fall line.
Oh, we have some absolutely insane shit dropping in the next couple of months.
So yeah,
I'm really excited for that. I think this, you know, we've done well so far. We're about to hit, I think, 2 million in sales pretty soon here. But I think this next collection is going to change everything. So we're excited. It's all designed by him too. So fucking
yours truly.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Give a follow or a subscribe. Comment any questions you have for the next guest. Also, we have a pretty new entrepreneur / online networking Discord. It's completely free to join. I'll leave the link to that below.
I'm part of that Discord.
Yeah. If you're young, if you want to network and meet other like-minded people getting after it. Lots of people with businesses, lots of athletes. There's almost like 5,000 people in there now. I'll leave the link to join below, because at the end of the day, being an entrepreneur, being an athlete, going after anything impressive is fucking lonely. But if you can find others doing the same thing, it's a lot easier. So thanks for watching.
Absolutely.